So I was doing some research on the Paramis, and I came across an origin story I thought would be a good way to start. So it's about the ascetic, and his name was Sumedha. So it starts out, 4 incalculables and 100,000 eons before our present age, which is to say a very, very long time ago. So I came up with what an incalculable was. So here's the definition of an incalculable. If a mountain bird with a silk scarf flies by a mountain every 100 years, how long would it take to wear down the mountain?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And a incalculable is 100,000 of those. So we're talking 4 incalculables and 100,000 eons ago. There was a ascetic named Sumedha, and he was on his path to arhatship. And what that means is he would be liberated in this lifetime and would not be reborn again. That's in the Theravadan branch of Buddhism. That's kind of the goal, not to get reborn again. He received word that a fully self-awakened one, a Buddha named Dipankara, was teaching in a town nearby. He traveled there and found Dipankara Buddha being venerated in a long procession attended by most of the townspeople. Sumedha was immediately touched with deep reverence upon seeing the noble bearing and vast tranquility of the Buddha. He realized that to become an arahant would be of great benefit to humankind, but the benefit to the world of a Buddha would be immensely greater. At that moment, in the presence of Dipankara Buddha, he made a vow to become a Buddha in a future life. This marked his entry in the path of a bodhisattva, a being bound for Buddhahood. So a bodhisattva is a more realized, liberated being. They vow to come back, not to come back to teach others. And that's more of a definition of a Buddha over an arhat. Just then, Sumedha noticed that the Buddha was about to walk through a patch of wet mud. Spontaneously, out of great devotion, he threw his body down in the mud and invited the Buddha and his Sangha to walk over him rather than dirty their feet. As the great teacher passed, Dipankara Buddha read Sumedha's mind and understood his aspiration and predicted that the ascetic Sumedha would fulfill his vow to become a Buddha at a time 4 incalculables and 100,000 eons in the future. It was also revealed that Sumedha that had he not made the aspiration to become a Buddha, he would have realized full enlightenment by that day listening to a discourse from Dipankara Buddha. That would have ended Sumedha's own suffering and also his chain of rebirths. But the Bodhisattva chose to devote inconceivable lifetimes of practice to gain the ultimate goal of Buddhahood. Having resolved on this goal, Sumedha then retired to his cave to reflect. How can I make this vast journey, he wondered. What aspects of mind and heart do I need to develop in order to become a Buddha? As he reflected, he saw that there were 10 wholesome qualities that he would need to be brought to strength and maturity. The factors that came into his mind one by one are our 10 paramis, or 10 perfections. Generosity, virtue, renunciation, wisdom, energy, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. He called this set the paramis, which has usually been translated to be perfections. Then he began the journey of innumerable lifetimes to develop the perfection of heart and mind that finally unfolded in his full enlightenment as Gautama Buddha under the Bodhi tree in northern India more than 2,500 years ago. So that's the story of our Buddha, the historical Buddha of our time. So clearly the story's somewhat archetypal, correct? Time spans and modern evolutionary theory and all that good stuff. But one teacher called it, it's pointing to our Buddha nature, or what's sometimes been called original mind. That these qualities that I just mentioned, the paramis, are not far from us. They're part of us, part of our Buddha nature. And much as Sumedha had to develop those qualities, or wanted to develop those qualities, or reveal those qualities, we can do the same. We can do the same. So sometimes the word perfection can be a bit misleading. I was on a retreat fairly recently, and one of the teachers was talking about this a little bit. Let me see how I put this. It would be a mistake to use meditation practice as a way of self-perfection. Maybe you've been down this road a little bit. It can drive you a little bit crazy. I guess there's a term out there, the optimized life. I wrote some things down here. Pursuit of the perfect things. Let's see what I write down. You have the perfect relationship, the perfect job, the perfect diet, great exercise program, perfect living situation. You could spend a whole life trying to pursue all those things. But as we all know, things tend to change on us. Job goes away, relationships have their ups and downs, living situations. So it's not the kind of perfection I don't think they're speaking towards here. Not to say that trying to live a successful, comforting life is not a reasonable goal, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Drive yourself a little nuts. So what are we talking about? The truthfulness here. A certain sense of inner purity. It comes from truth. You may have noticed, just in the terms of honesty, not lying, life is much simpler if you're honest and you're not having to worry about lies you told someone and the stories you made up and things like that. Straightforward, you can just chill out. And life is very much simpler, much calmer, lends itself to much more peace. Let me see, there's a quote here I wanted to read. This is from Sylvia Borstein, who's been teaching up at Spirit Rock for probably 40 years, I would imagine. Every moment of mindfulness is a moment of truthfulness, of direct knowing, direct and clear understanding. Direct, clear, and true understanding is such a relief. It inspires determination in practice. And when you see the truth of how things are, our capacity for loving kindness or metta increases. So once again, this truthfulness and loving kindness are expression of that Buddha nature, that original nature that we have. So every time you see things in a more truthful manner, that can arise as well. It's reminded me, one time I was here for a day long. I was sitting right over there, and the room was quiet, much like when we were sitting. And then next door, they started to have some sort of gathering, some sort of party. And you could hear all the voices. They kept getting louder and louder. And of course, I was getting, not angry, but, resignated to this was going to be the sit. I was going to, chill out. This is what's happening in the present moment and all that stuff. And then I listened to them a while, and they were really having a good time. And you know how some people get in a crowd and they all laugh at the same time. It goes up and down and up and down. And I felt like, oh, they're really having a good time. And then that metta, the compassion, that loving kindness, everything kind of shifted, right? It's like, wow, this stuff really works, because I wasn't upset, but you know what I mean. It's loud, I want my meditation to be deep here, but it was wonderful to see that, and I'm sure you've noticed that as well, right? The truth of the situation, at least at that point for me, was that was going on, but that was okay. And I have another reading for you. So, this is from the sutras. And this is Rahula and the Buddha. And Rahula was the Buddha's son. And at some point in his young adulthood, he became a monk and started following the Buddha. And they were at a place called the Mango Stone. So, then the Blessed One, arising from his seclusion, that would have been the Buddha, in the late afternoon, went to where Venerable Rahula was staying at the Mango Stone. So the Buddha's coming to see his son. I'm not sure if I want the Buddha for my father. I'm not quite sure, but you guys can decide. Rahula saw him coming from afar, and on seeing him, set out a seat and water for washing the feet. The Blessed One sat down on the seat and set out, and having sat down, washed his feet. Then Rahula, bowing down, sat to one side. Then the Buddha, having left a little bit of remaining water in the water dipper, said to Rahula, Rahula, do you see this little bit of remaining water left in the water dipper? Yes, sir. That's how little a contemplative there is in anyone who feels no shame at telling a deliberate lie. Having tossed away the little bit of remaining water, the Blessed One said to Rahula, do you see how this little bit of remaining water is tossed away? Yes, sir. Rahula, whatever there is a contemplative in anyone who feels no shame at telling a deliberate lie is tossed away just like that. Having turned the water dipper upside down, the Blessed One said, Venerable Rahula, do you see how this water dipper is turned upside down? Yes, sir. Rahula, whatever there ever is a contemplative in anyone who feels no shame at telling a deliberate lie is turned upside down just like that. It goes on. And then this paragraph's kind of interesting. Rahula, it's like a royal elephant, immense, pedigreed, accustomed to battles. Its tusks, like the chariot poles, having gone into battle. It uses its forefeet and its hind feet, its forequarters and its hindquarters, its head, its ears, its tusks and tail, but will simply hold its trunk back. The elephant trader noticed that, and thinks, this royal elephant has not given up its life to the king. But when the royal elephant, having gone into battle, uses its forefeet and hind feet, its forequarters and hindquarters, its head, ears, tusks, and tail, as in its trunk, the trader notices that and thinks, this royal elephant has given up its life to the king. There is nothing it will not do. In the same way, Rahula, when anyone feels no shame in telling a deliberate lie, there is no evil. I'll tell you he will not do. Thus, Rahula, you should train yourself. I will not tell a deliberate lie, even in jest. So like I said, I don't know. My father would lecturing me like that. There's all kind of suttas where Rahula and his dad are having a dialogue back and forth. So we could do probably a whole talk on that. So there's a spoken sort of original mind, original truth, if you will. I thought I should mention the Four Noble Truths. And actually, fairly recently, I think Jokai was trying to pin me down. Jokai is our guiding teacher here. We have discussions once in a while. I said, so Brad, are the Four Noble Truths really true? And of course, I fumbled an answer. I'm not sure if I made the right answer. But you could think of in truths in the relative world and truths in the ultimate world, right? So there's a difference here. And as I thought about it, the Four Noble Truths kind of exist in the conventional world. So in ancient India, this is the way a doctor would provide a healing. So let me just go through. So, Four Noble Truths. The first one. Generally, a lot of people translate it as all life is suffering. I think the word is, no, that's not the word. But I like, there's Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who's actually a Western monk who has a monastery in North San Diego County. He translates it as stress. So I like that a little better. That all life contains a certain amount of stress. The Pali word is escaping me right now, but the image or the analogy that the Buddha used was the image of an ox cart, and you have an axle and the wheel, and if the wheel is not exactly true to the axle, every time it moves, the ox cart will go down the road like this. So the Buddha is saying we have this stress in our lives that's there all the time. So that's the first noble truth. And the second noble truth, this stress or suffering, if you want to call it that, is caused by clinging or attachment. That we want things to be a certain way, and even if things are a certain way that we like, that things are going to change, because that's inherently the nature of things to change. I'm sure you've heard these before, but I just thought I'd bring them up because we're talking about truths. So the first one there is the ailment, the stress. The second one here is the cause of the stress. And the third is how to deal with it. So the third is there is a way out. And the fourth is the antidote to the Noble Eightfold Path. So, right view, resolve, speech, conduct, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and samadhi. So that makes these truths actionable. Right? That makes this truth that he's talking about actionable. That here's a way out, right? It's not just all life is suffering and get over it. Just deal with it. There is a way out. The Noble Eightfold Path. So it makes it actionable. Less clinging, less suffering. So. And there, another one of the foundational teachings, Sati and the Satipatthana Sutra, or Sutta. The four foundations of mindfulness. How do you develop mindfulness? Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feeling tone, Vedana, mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of the dharma, the Dhamma. In this way, you can develop that capacity to see truth and mindfulness, right? And sometimes think of mindfulness. It's also sometimes translated as remembering. So if you're lost in thought and you bring yourself back into the present moment, that's a moment of mindfulness, correct? So you're remembering to come back into the present moment. And then I was thinking also, many, many years ago when I first started practice, I was in college, this is like 40 plus years ago. Before I went to sleep at night, I would review the day. What was going on. And then really what, in those days, what came up was all my emotional reactions to everything that occurred in that day and how I dealt with it. And rather than things being straightforward, it was all resistance or whatever, clinging, whatever. So that was a real remembering sati for me. Truthfulness, coming to terms with actually the way I was comporting myself in the world and its mind. And that was really an important part of my practice. So I think this sati as truthfulness. There, what I write down here. Being honest about what is occurring in the present moment. Not just about acquiring more knowledge. Truth is deeper than beliefs. Truth leads to peace and freedom. Truth is what you can become. I like that one. I don't think that's not for me personally, but it becomes, as you practice this, it becomes more who you are. Then as I was researching this, came across Gandhi's work in India, and then of course Martin Luther King's work in America. So you could say that in India, Gandhi was practicing or doing his best to practice truth in action. See if I can find the quotes here, yes. So, most of you know, but Gandhi was leading the struggle to bring India to what he called home rule, because the British had colonized India, I think 100 years earlier. And by all reports, were treating the Indian people fairly badly in terms of taking over their land and riches and destroying their culture. So his truth was that nonviolent struggle in India, he called it satyagraha, to bring about change in India nonviolently. So I got a quote from here. Nonviolence for me is not a mere experiment. It is part of my life. Satyagraha. Nonviolent protest based on truth, non-cooperation, civil disobedience, and the like are necessary deductions from a fundamental proposition that nonviolence is a law of life for human beings. For me, it is both a means and an end. So that was his version of truth, brought into action. And eventually the British did leave India. He was a little disheartened because India was partitioned into India and Pakistan, two separate countries, and that was not done non-violently. And even today we've got issues with that. But he stands an example of that, leading a country into their truth, showing the British their truth. That's the part he wanted. For more than anything, that's the way he felt he would bring about the change. What was one of his lines? Was that somebody said, well, we should do this and this to the British. And he said, no, we want the British to leave as friends. We've been with each other for a long time. We want to leave as friends, right? That was one of his great accomplishments, Then Martin Luther King was influenced by Gandhi. And he called his version of satyagraha soul force. So I have a quote from him as well here. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. And again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. And that was from his I Have a Dream speech, August 28, 1963, on that mall in Washington. I don't know, maybe I'll probably see pictures of that.
Hi, I'm Franz with Long Beach Meditation. Your gracious generosity makes this programming possible. If you found this video to be of value, please consider making a donation here. If you'd like to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to stay in touch with Long Beach Meditation, click here to subscribe. Thank you, and may all beings be happy.